My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Samas and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Well, hello there, and welcome to WTA Weekly. Oh gosh, it's been a while, and it's also been way too long since I was on with Mario. Mario, how are you doing?
Fine, actually, I'm very, very happy to be here as always. So yeah, just can't wait to talk through whatever happened over the past 10, 11 days.
Oh, way too much happened, and we are on the other side of the marathon, ready to start another marathon. With the US Open coming up. Canada is done, Cincinnati is done, and Mario is once again winning the bookshelf wars. So that we seem to have going on. I'm always admiring your bookshelves, Mario, whereas mine pale in comparison.
My bookshelf?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got comics since I were a child and a kid. This is actually not my where I have all my books I read now. So
nice. All right, so let's talk about things. So, yeah, Cincinnati is done, and the champion is Iga Swiatek, and well, I think going into this tournament was always going to be pretty competitive, and when we got to the quarterfinals, I was very intrigued to see which out of Aryna Sabalenka, Iga Swiatek, or Coco Gauff would walk away with the trophy. I guess they were the most likely ones to win it, and Iga ends up being the only one standing by the semi-finals, wins the title, and yeah, Mario, let's dive into. We will hold off on the question in the title until maybe a bit later, but let's talk about her Cincinnati performance and focus on that before we look at the US Open. Where are we at with Iga Swiatek now? Is she back to how we were seeing her before that sort of year-long title drought?
More or less, I would say yes, actually, because I mean, she played 3 tournaments now and 3 big ones, and she won 2 of them, Wimbledon and Cincinnati. Only loss came at Canada. Actually, even against an opponent, you can lose against, especially right after Wimbledon. So I would really say yes, even though I feel like we are maybe even watching a different Iga in some way. She served incredibly well this week. She wasn't rushed a lot on the forehand side, which was, I think, a big issue in this 1-year title drought for her. We've seen many matches, I would say, especially at the beginning of this year. But also I remember, for example, US Open last year against Pegula, where she was really rushed a lot on that side, and she's holding up incredibly well right now. So I would say that, yeah, of course, we've been back seeing that some, let's say, sort of winning machine, because when you win Cincinnati, Wimbledon, and we'll see what comes after, but she's really into a winning mode. But at the same time, we are witnessing, in my opinion, a different Iga in some way, and this is, I think, it's the key, because when you want to have a long career and you want to have multiple successful season, you have also to evolve as a player, to adjust something, and I think the work she's been putting in with women, in general over the past months, I would say, is really paying off right now. And I'm really happy when I watch her play, because I feel like we are not only watching a player who's back in the winning mode, but also a player who has developed and who has evolved as a player, and become a different version of herself, and which is as successful as the previous one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because it does feel like I'm watching that. You can tell now that there have been changes made. And she's still just as clean with the backhand as she always is. The forehand is ruthless when it's deployed. It doesn't misfire as often at the moment as it was at points sort of last year or earlier this year. And as you're saying, it's the serve. The serve is just so different, and that is making her even more dangerous, more well-rounded player. And now it feels like, whilst I think she was never a clay court specialist, she is the leading, she was leading on like hard court 1000s as well, even before the changes. It feels like it's now no longer speed. She can win it on any speed.
Yep.
Now, so I agree with you. It's like I'm always watching the serve, and if it's a good serving day for Iga, now she's even tougher to beat. So yeah, I think you're kind of spot on with where she's at. Having said that, she did have to kind of grit her way through that Paolini match. I mean, it was so strange after that Rybakina match, where she kind of comes back from a breakdown and she's looking like the better player for most of the rest of that match. And then the final was like clear she was the better player when she got going, but it was very stop-start. I do feel like Paolini's return was really, really good, though. And I think that was a lot of what was behind Iga being maybe a little bit more nervous on the serve. But yeah, did you find maybe the odds that maybe the performance in the final was the least confident one?
Probably, but at the same time, I think I want also to give Paolini credit for for what she put on the court yesterday, because I think she really played the very, very good match. She did more or less what she had to do, and in a convincing way. So I feel like Iga hasn't been the ruthless probably version of herself we've seen in some finals before in her career, but at the same time I feel like overall, especially after that bad start, she got things going, and she did her job pretty well, even though maybe she wasn't, I don't know, as good as in the final part of the match against Rybakina. But I think Paolini deserves a credit for what we saw on the court, because we've seen a really, really good version of Jasmine. You could really tell she got a lot of confidence throughout this tournament, and she showed it in the final, and made Iga go through some kind of quite difficult times. For example, in the first set, that was the bad start. Then Iga won 5 games in a row, 5-3, and Paolini managed to make the set 2 games longer. And in the second set, there was a lot of fight as well. So I would say, yeah, I kind of agree with the comment where that Paolini kind of played the best match of her tournament in the final in some way. So yeah, I'm not really looking at that much in the final about how these details that probably Iga didn't do that well. But I think overall she had a solid performance throughout this tournament, and in the final, few too many double faults, but at the same time I feel like it's okay. It's normal, because the opponent also can make you feel a little uncomfortable at times. And so I would say that we've seen a good version of Iga in a final as well, even though maybe not the best one of this tournament and this part of the season. But overall, I don't think there's much to complain about her level.
No, I don't think there's much to complain about at all, especially given, like, if she can play better, she didn't drop a set. So watch out, field. And I guess that kind of pivots us nicely to the title question, which is this. I'm going to let you kind of have your thoughts on it, Mario, first. And I'm going to say it as it is. Has Swiatek overtaken Sabalenka as the US Open favourite?
For me, Iga is the US Open favorite because she is playing the best right now. Of course, we don't have to forget how consistent Sabalenka is in reaching the final stages at Grand Slam tournaments, and how good her record is on this, especially on hard courts in Grand Slams, but overall in this major tournament. So it still will be kind of shocking to see Sabalenka having an early exit in spite of everything. But yeah, I feel like we can also say they are equal favorite as in the comments, because they're still on the opposite side of draws. So probably it will also depend on where the biggest challenges will be on the draw. But right now we don't know who they will be playing, and I think Iga is the most informed player right now. She's won 2 very, very big tournaments, and big tournament where you never felt she was that close to winning before in her career. So I mean, in Cincinnati she reached the semifinals in 23 and 24, but it's the first time, I think. That match against Gauff was very close, and we don't know what she would have done in the final, but you get what I mean. I don't think, for example, that in this year's Cincinnati tournament we would have seen a similar match to the Sabalenka-Swiatek we saw last year in Cincinnati. I think it would have been much more competitive, and probably Iga could have won that one as well. So I mean, for me, right now I would probably put Iga at number 1 for how well she's playing and how well she's serving. And because also I feel like her game is really adjusting well to to the speed of the court, and she's not just in form, but like doing things in the right way in order to succeed on this kind of courts. So I feel kind of confident about her.
Nice. Yeah, I do too. I'm pretty confident. I think the Cincinnati result is kind of a breakthrough, as you say, like those 2 semi-finals defeats, the person who was the eventual champion, and you can kind of see that affected how things went to the US Open. Arguably, she's even worse in the 2022 season, where she actually won it, because she was a last 16 in that tournament. I think, looking at sort of history and everything else, like right now, the most informed players are the 3 most recent US Open champions, Sabalenka, Gauff, and Swiatek. You would also say that, well, here's a stat. The US Open has been won by someone who has won one of the hard court 1000s every year since 2018. Apart from 2020, where you had, I don't really count that because Osaka got to the final against Azarenka in the warm-up and then withdrew. We never got to see what that warm-up final would have looked like, but got to the final. And then 2021 was Emma Raducanu.
And Azarenka wasn't far from winning that US Open.
No, she wasn't. She wasn't, no. And then if you look at the last couple of years, Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka won the US Open, having won Cincinnati. So for me, I'm always going to look at who's doing well from people who've been able to win on a North American hard court in a 1000. I'm going to be looking at who likes the tournament. And at the moment of those, I think Iga Swiatek is the favourite, based on that. It's not by much. Sabalenka, of course, has this great history of performing well on hard courts, but I think Iga is looking more confident right now. I think Sabalenka is vulnerable to someone playing very, very well. And I think Iga might not be as vulnerable. So I am going to go with Iga being the overall favourite. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. It's similar to you. It's not much in it, really. I think it's something Sabalenka's going to be fighting pretty hard to defend her crown, especially since, this is her last chance to kind of rescue her season, as it were. If you are going to define the season just by winning Grand Slams, obviously it's been pretty successful anyway, with 2 1,000 titles. Where are you at right now, Mario, with Sabalenka after this tournament? Let's talk about the other person who is currently winning the poll as being the US Open favourite. She loses to Rybakina in the quarterfinals, which is not a bad loss because Rybakina is a big problem for her. She always drops at least one set to her. So I didn't see the match, but to me, just based on the result, that's not enough to make Sabalenka panic because this Rybakina is a very good and a problem player for her.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you are with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not the result in itself. We have seen, for example, the same thing happening, even worse scoreline in 2024 before the Australian Open. Sabalenka got just 3 games against Rybakina in the warm-up event, and then won the tournament anyway. But, I watched the match, and for me, it's not maybe much about the 6-1. I would say, I was expecting a bit more from Sabalenka later in the match in the second set. Rybakina was pretty clutch with the serve, that has to be said. A couple break points in the second set saved with an ace or an return serve. But yeah, I feel like this has been, a moment where Sabalenka has looked a bit more vulnerable that we have been used to see, like, let's say, until Roland Garros, I would say, where she was kind of looking like inevitable unless somebody, was about to pull off something special, like, I don't know, it happened a few times. But yeah, she was looking like, you were at least expecting her in the final, and the only chance maybe would have been her nerves a little bit in the final, like it happened, for example, at the French Open. Also, of course, Gauff deserves credit for that. But right now it feels like she dropped a little bit with her level. You can, let's say, overpower her at times. That's what kind of Rybakina did in that match, and we'll see. Then, of course, as I said, I think it will also depend on the draw. Probably we will talk in another way in a few days' time, because I don't know. For example, Australian Open 24, I would say that Sabalenka faced challenges, but things were started looking good for her in that moment. And maybe this can happen again at the US Open this year, or maybe she can just fight her way through the draw, because she's able to do it. But if I have to say it right now, I feel like she dropped her level a little bit. She's still very tough to beat because very few players managed to beat her, and still at least it has to be a quarter or a semi-final. At least so far this has happened. Wimbledon and Cincinnati, this has been the case. But I'm not seeing the best version of Aryna that we have basically seen non-stop between Cincinnati last year with say and basically the French Open, just excluding the middle swing, the Middle East swing. At the same time, last year, she was looking vulnerable in Washington and Canada, and then from Cincinnati onwards, something clicked, and she started, playing unbelievably well. Who knows, maybe this can happen again, but from what we've seen, she she dropped her level a little bit, with the backhand missing quite a few, not being as clear as always. So I would say that she's just letting others more opportunities in the matches that, she's used to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, there's definitely something a little bit missing. Having said that, I think they were missing against players that she needs to be on to beat. I'm trying to think. Who beat Sabalenka in Rome?
Zhang, Qinwen.
Okay, so apart from her...
And then she got revenge at the French Open.
Yeah, she got revenge at the French Open. It wasn't a problem. So let's talk at Roland Garros onwards. She loses to Coco Gauff, Marketa Vondrousova in Berlin, Amanda Anisimova in Wimbledon, and Elena Rybakina in Cincinnati. Like, I've mentioned Elena being a problem for her already. Anisimova has like crazy head-to-head. Vondrousova's beaten her once before. Coco Gauff can be a thorn on her side, and they always play real battles when they play against each other because they just perfectly balance out each other's strengths. So, and that was really a court that Coco Gauff was always going to have more of an advantage on. So to me, like Sabalenka's strike level may have dropped, but then she's getting beaten players who you can trust to take advantage of that, but most of the field can't. And I think it's very specific, very matchup specific. So yeah, I agree with you. As the draw, it will be down to the draw, who she gets, and we'll see how she's kind of tested coming into the finals weekend if she makes it that far, which I would still trust her to make the semi-finals.
Yeah, sure. I would actually even say that when she won a Grand Slam, she still had to get over one of these hurdles in terms of head-to-head. She had to beat Bekic, the first Grand Slam title in 23, then Anisimova again at the Australian Open in 2024, I believe. Yeah. And of course also Gauff taking revenge of the US Open. So I don't know if history will repeat itself, but she's always been able to find something against a tough opponent when she needed to, when she won those Grand Slam titles. We'll see. But yeah, I agree with what you say, of course.
So just on, while we're talking about Sabalenka right now, those matches are long finished, are they? Oh, they were already in the quarterfinals. Good grief. With the mixed doubles, let's talk about. I just want to ask you about sort of your. I like to do my sort of match of the week. I haven't been able to watch an awful lot of Cincinnati. Yeah. However, from sort of seeing scorelines and hype, would I be right in thinking that Sabalenka Raducanu was the best match from Cincinnati?
Yeah, I would say so. Even though even though people will look at the Amferster numbers, but I would say overall the level increased as the match went on, and yeah, overall I would say that there's really been a great battle, and yeah, I think it lived to the hype, so I would choose that as well.
Yeah, cool, absolutely perfect. Very funny producer.
New album.
For those who cannot see, the attempts to highlight my X account, he has, of course, located my namesake from the Backstreet Boys. Moving on, let's talk about Jasmine Paolini, who, yeah, I feel like anytime she does well at a tournament is a good time to get Mario on.
That's true.
And we talked a bit about her performance in the final, but this was a really good week, kind of out of nowhere for her. And it wouldn't have been that crazy to me if she won another 1,000 this week. She played well enough to potentially challenge Iga in the final, but taking out Gauff again is going to be a big deal, a big result for her. So it's kind of like, and it's reminded me that, oh wait, Paolini's actually done all right on US hard courts before. So she's still kind of in the mix to give us some good matches in New York. So yeah, Mario, talk to us about Jasmine Paolini. Where are we at with her after this week?
Yeah, I think it's been a very important tournament for her, especially because she's managed to also win ugly in some of her matches. And this was important because, lately after winning in Rome, it feels like she has lost many of these matches where level was not that high, but she was still there scoreline wise, and she and she didn't cross the line in the end. So I would say that it's been especially important to come through some of these tough matches, especially the first one against Sakari, where she wasn't playing at their best, and it was really a scrappy battle, and she managed to win that one somehow, despite wasting some leads, especially in the first set, but also the second set tiebreak. That was crazy, from 6-love up, and then Sakari double faults when she was trying to tie her in the score. And after that, she started playing better and better. I feel like she played an intelligent match against Gauff, making her feeling very, very insecure. Of course, we know that Gauff is struggling with her serve lately, but it really was it really was a good showing, in my opinion. And I would also say the semifinal, it was really good, because after, not closing out in straight, the third set was really high quality, in my opinion, from both players. And, Paolini managing to win also those close games in the middle of the set that have made the difference in the end. It's really been an important week for her, because, she needed not only a good result, but also to being the winner, in my opinion, in these matches, which are close, maybe not always playing at the best possible level. And overall, I also say that she can, leave with the head held high after the final, because, she gave us a show. She played well. She did what she had to do. She did it at a good level. And so I would really say that, as always, maybe we don't have to expect her to be the best possible version of herself every single week, but she confirms herself as someone we don't have to sleep on, because she's able every now and then to find some very good weeks. And yeah, right now, she's really building a good palmarès, not only to 1,000 titles, but other big finals. And so, yeah, I would say that she's still here. She's fighting for a spot at the WTA Finals, and we'll see. Now she's very close, so we'll see now in the past week, in the next weeks, and also in New York. We'll see also the draw, how it will look like for her. But I would say that, she is someone to look at, of course.
Yeah. I would agree with you there. I think she can't be counted out. And I think it's interesting how at the beginning of the year, we're like, okay, she potentially going to regress back. She was a bit fortunate to get some of the results she did last year. And I think now we can say, like, no. No, I think she's able to maintain and continue that level. And the way she's able to open up the court with her ability to play angles and move her opponent around is really, really impressive, and then finish it off with a winner. So I think she's going to be in there. She's going to be certainly difficult to beat for a lot of people. I'm excited to see how she going to progress. So yeah, Paolini is in a good position there. I want to talk about Elena Rybakina, because she's now in an interesting position, Mario, because she seems to have got back to where we sort of expect her to be, in my opinion. And she's reached the semi-finals of the last 3 tournaments she's played and lost the champion in all 3 matches. So it feels like she just needs one more step and then she's holding a big trophy again. I feel like we shouldn't be. I can't be anything but optimistic that that's going to happen. I'm not necessarily saying it's the US Open, but I do think Rybakina is looking good at the moment. What do you think?
Yeah, level-wise, she's definitely looking better. There's still something, probably also mental a little bit, that she has to overcome in some moments of these matches. Of course, the biggest example, I would say probably, not in Cincinnati, but in women was Montreal, yeah. And of course also against Fernandez, but especially probably in Montreal against Mboko. Also a little bit, probably, she was just playing unbelievable tennis in the first set against Iga, and then suddenly can't close that out. Of course, also Iga, played very well to then, kind of fly away. But yeah, so, she's kind of in a weird spot because, level-wise, we are watching a great improvement, that's for sure. If we compare to the Rybakina we've seen at the beginning of the season, she's looking, more and more like, the, let's say, old version of herself, like that player that everybody is scared about and nobody wants to see her in the draw. I think now this is the case for the US Open, for example. At the same time, I feel like she still has, I think it's mostly mental, because of what I've seen in the past 3 weeks. Some work to do on that side in order to, to be able to make that step, especially in the first 2 tournaments of this North American swing. She hasn't been able to do it against Iga a little bit, let's say, but at the same time, the caliber of the opponent was different. So we'll see. I'm for sure expecting her to keep getting better, because we've seen also in this tournament and in these past weeks how well she can play, and especially when she's serving well, how difficult it is as an opponent. But yeah, so as I'm optimistic, but at the same time, she has to do this step mentally in order to, kind of being confident also when she's close to winning an important match and qualifying, for example, for a final, even against Sabalenka, the final game, the final 2 service games, she was a little hesitant in some way, she missed a couple easy forehands. So we'll see, but for sure she's playing at a much better level right now.
Nice. Yeah, definitely much better level. And I see what you say about the mental side of things being the next step, but I think it often is. I think that 9 times out of 10, that's what the thing that is going to make the difference is that confidence that in your execution of your game. I would say that Iga was in a similar position the first half of this year, where she was so consistent, and then she was losing to players who were having good tournaments. And I always felt like, okay, if she just clicked back into gear, she wins a tournament. That was all it was needed, and it was just that one step, and it was probably mental because various things happened that meant it that she was just falling short. I think Rybakina is now at that same stage. And I agree with you. I think she's not going to be a nice draw for most people. I mean, she's back up to world number 10. So at least the top players don't have to worry about playing until the second week at the earliest. But I think that she's going to be feeling pretty good about her chance of getting a good result at a tournament where she doesn't have the history of it, but which is odd. But I think this is the first time that she's actually looked good during a US hardcourt season. So I'm optimistic for her right now. And if it doesn't happen at the US Open, which I think it might be a tough ask, I could see her winning one of the 1000s in the Asian swing, like Beijing, or maybe if anyone can prise Wuhan out of Sabalenka's fingers, she can. So we'll have to see how that one goes. But yeah, I'm calling it. I think watch out for Rybakina this Asian swing.
Yeah.
If that was, although I think she's playing Billie Jean King Cup for Kazakhstan, right?
Yeah, she should. We'll see if she will in the end. But yeah, for sure. And she's also in the fight for the WTA Finals. So who knows? Maybe that can be the tournament, the magical tournament for her. Who knows? So yeah, we'll just see. But for sure, we are. We are seeing a very good version of Rybakina. You actually, did well in mentioning how she never really played that well in this part of the year before. Her US Open record is not that good, actually, for a player like Rybakina. So we'll see. Maybe, for sure, she's a dangerous opponent and nobody wants to face her. That's for sure. I'm pretty sure Iga herself, as much as she won in straights, she would prefer to see Rybakina on the other side of the draw.
Oh, yeah. Well, look what Rybakina nearly knocked her out the French. So, yeah, she's still dangerous for everyone. So, yeah, I don't think anyone really wants Rybakina anywhere near them in these upcoming draws. Speaking of the WTA Finals, obviously we've had that sort of picture on the screen of that post from the Rybakina fan. And I hadn't realised Iga's now qualified for Riyadh, which... that's big news. So we've got 2 players sorted, and it's the 2 players that always seem to be the stars of the show. It's no real surprise, but that's got to be for Iga's season, given there were it was a B or a C grade season for her, to end up qualifying for the WTA Finals after Cincinnati is a really, really good thing for her, and it's going to solidify that she's kind of achieved a lot of her goals this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, of course, Iga has very high standards, but I would say you won a Grand Slam tournament that you've never won before. And, Wimbledon, you win Cincinnati, which is a 1000, but also a big tournament that you had never won. You qualify for the WTA Finals. So, I would say that her season right now is good. And Grand Slam, if we think about Grand Slams, it's been also a very consistent season. For the first time, she made 3 semis, I think, in 1 year. Also 2022 there was. But, if we exclude that, semis in Australia, semis at Roland Garros, winning Wimbledon, if she achieves a solid result at US Open, I don't think we can call her season, how we've called it before Wimbledon.
No.
So,
Definitely not. Is Coco Gauff in danger of having the opposite season to Iga? Because, she was looking better at Cincinnati. Paolini was not a bad person to lose to for her. But are we seeing that maybe Coco has kind of lost a little bit of confidence at the moment?
It looks like that. After winning the French Open, let's say that things never really clicked for her. Probably Cincinnati was still a little bit of a step forward compared to Montreal. I feel like, even though the serve still looked pretty bad and she still had a lot of mistakes, but yeah, she's not looking great, let's say. And I don't know, but if we think about the history of her career, the 2 Grand Slam titles she won came after a good moment for her. 2023 US Open, she was on a run. This year's French Open, she she hadn't won titles before, but she was, reaching very high consistency because, Madrid final and Rome final. So probably this would suggest me to not expect amazing things at the US Open, at least in terms of winning the title, because of, just because of what happened before the first 2 Grand Slam titles of her career. But, maybe it will be different. I still think Coco is an incredibly tough player to beat because, she makes you suffer a lot. And, she's able also through bad service games and through matches with many mistakes to still give it all and to make it very, very difficult for you to hit winners. Think about Paolini. She made 7 winners in her match against Coco. That tells how difficult it is, because Paolini is also a player who goes for it at times. So I would still see that she's very difficult to beat, but yeah, she's not looking in the best place. I would say that she needs to find that confidence back in order to, just cut off a little bit of her numbers in terms of double fault mistakes, especially the forehand that we know it can be a liability when she's not in confidence. So yeah, we'll see. But, at the same time, we know that she is a player that can always find something special in her game. I'm not really expecting it at the US Open in terms of, if I see her winning the title. If I see her having a solid result, yes, because, she kind of always does. We'll see.
Yeah, I expect her to be solid at the US Open. I think that she'll be one of the hardest players to beat at the US Open. I think that she'll be in the second week of the US Open, for sure, minimum. But what happens next? Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy to think that she could gain some confidence, especially with the crowd behind her. But
Yeah.
Coco is a player who needs to build confidence before winning something big. It tends to be how it goes with her. So I don't think that. So that's why we might need to put the brakes on some of the hype. But I'm not a fan of just ruling out Coco and going, oh, she's struck, like she's not going to do anything. Like, how many times now she's at 21 has she just suddenly gone, no, I'm still here and I'm winning this. Like she did that with the US Open. She's done it with the WTA Finals. She's done it with the French Open. I think Coco Gauff is one of the leading names in the field, and I think she's going to be someone who is going to be one of the biggest stories of the US Open, regardless. Let's see I'm interested to see what will happen to help her regain that confidence. And yeah, that's that word again. I think Sabalenka's in a similar position, to be honest. Needs lacking some kind of confidence or mental edge that maybe she hasn't had up to this point. And there's only certain players who can take advantage of that, to be honest. But again, is a player who maybe needs to build some confidence before doing something, but the threshold to achieve that is a little lower. So yeah, I think that's where we're kind of at with a lot of the top people going into the US Open. Let's talk about Veronica Kudermetova, semi-finalist, former top 10 player, kind of in the wilderness for the last 2 years. So like, is she back?
I mean, I watch her play, and with the game she has, I really wonder why she's not, stable in the top 30, because she's a great server. Her ground strokes, look good, clean. She has a great timing on the ball. So, when I watch her play, I feel like she has all it takes to be, a factor, let's say, not in the top 5, but, being in the mix like she's been in Cincinnati. At least that's my feeling when I watch her play. And yeah, I feel like against Paolini, for example, but overall the whole tournament, I was, she did really well in my opinion, because the match started quite bad. She was missing a lot. She was not returning good. But I feel like in the end, it's Paolini who won that match in the third set and not herself losing it. And she really did well overall in the whole tournament. And for me, as I said, of course, that's not the only thing to consider, because tennis is also a lot mentally. And she told in some interviews this week, some also press conference, I think, that she's had a bad period last season mentally. She wasn't feeling like confident going out on court, and we know that that's really important if you want to achieve results. But if we just look at her game, at how she hits the ball and how she can make opponents suffer, how she can serve, for me, she is a player who can achieve these results. It's not shocking for me that she's playing a semis in a 1000 tournament. If I'm expecting her to win one, I don't know. If it doesn't happen, it won't be a shock for me. But I'm not. For me, it's it was really surprising to see her dropping that much in the ranking at some point, because I feel like she's got the game to be where she is right now. I would say that I'm expecting her to keep going. And because, for me, she has the quality, she has the game to be a seed at a Grand Slam, consistently. So, that's where I'm at when I think about Kudermetova. So I'm not really surprised to see her back in the mix.
Yeah, no surprise. For me either. I think, as you say, she's a solid player. She's a clean striker. She can get wins against some good players. It's just repeating that, and she's not been able to really repeat that. So hopefully this is a bit of a renaissance for her. What her top end is, I don't know, because I think now, especially compared to 4-5 years ago, the standard to win a WTA 1000 is just now so high. It's just so high to win one. It's not quite as high as a Grand Slam, but I think it does deserve its own kind of level. It definitely, I definitely think it takes an extra special effort to win one of those, even if you have like a packed 500 draw, like a Stuttgart or a Berlin. It's just something different about winning them, especially now they're 2 weeks long, regardless of what you think of that. I think it's one of those. Could she do it? Yes. How likely is that? Probably not very, but that's more a reflection of the quality of people she'd have to beat rather than her own quality.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, it was just a surprise to see her really dropping that much in the ranking. For me, she's not somebody who should stay outside the top 50. For me, she has to be in. That's been, my surprise at the beginning of the year. For example, when I watched the two sisters, I think Veronica's got the bigger game, if I have to be honest. Even though Polina has, quite high ceiling in some weeks. We've seen this at the beginning of the year. But for me, the way Kudermetova plays, I feel like, this player has her spot in the top, let's say, even more than 40, let's say.
Well, this is why they set the standard for the champions to beat at Wimbledon. Deep cut tennis fandom reference there. If anyone's not entirely sure what we're talking about, it's going to take too long to explain. But at least Mario knows what I'm talking about, which is the good thing here. Okay, well, we're at 49 minutes. I think we've dissected a lot of Cincinnati. Mario, do you have any final thoughts on stories from the Cincinnati tournament, where we are now heading into the US Open?
I feel like it's pretty clear for me where we are. Let's say that I think that there are, I would say, 3 players, because I would consider Gauff in this group, that for me have something, they are the top 3 favorites. Of course, I agree with putting Iga at number 1. I would probably say Sabalenka 2 and Gauff 3rd, but for me, they are a step ahead, the others. At the same time, why is WTA so fun right now is that there is a big group of players like Paolini we've seen this week, but also, Keys, I don't know, Andreeva. We'll see where she's at, because there's a question mark around her. But also Anisimova, we've seen at Wimbledon. There is a group of players who can really do damage. So, and, cause some, let's say, surprise. And so, I think it's a really fun time, because we've got kind of both the consistency from the top players, but at the same time, a strong group of players who is just behind and is ready to take advantage of a little drop from these, let's say, these top players. So, I'm really expecting a fun tournament. I agree with the poll.
It was really swung during the show, by the way, because it was overwhelming Sabalenka when we started.
So yeah, I think it's pretty clear. I think the whole season has been kind of this way, even though the names have a little bit changed. The top players have gone. Iga has grown as the season went on, and but overall, the whole year has been a little bit like that. There is these 2-3 players you expect the most, but there is another group. Yeah, I would say Rybakina, but I've mentioned all these players who can do some damage, and we'll see. One of them has even won a Grand Slam title this year, has managed to do it. So we'll see. What I'm saying is that even though it's pretty clear who are the favorites, there are other players who can win, and I wouldn't be shocked.
I have got a lot of fun trying to figure out a power ranking, which I'm going to be recording after this for Talking Tennis to release ahead of the US Open. I kind of have an idea already. I just need to work out who else is in the mix. But yeah, there's definitely a strong group of others. And there might be, including some young up-and-coming players who might be wanting an opportunity. Like, that's where US Open's been the kind of home of breakthroughs. We didn't see where Andreeva is at in Cincinnati because she didn't play it. We don't know what kind of momentum Victoria Omboko has. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, let's say that it's been fun that we've had 2, let's say, completely different sort of 1,000 events leading up to the US Open. Let's say that Cincinnati has been actually both, also on the men's side, but especially on the women's side. Cincinnati has been, kind of a contest between the top players, seeing who looks the best between them. And Canada was just, an amazing champion, showing us that, she's still somebody to have fear of. And, this young Canadian star, who knows, maybe 2019 will repeat itself.
Who knows? Yeah, repeat Bianca Andreescu, which, but she was having an amazing season. She won Indian Wells as well that year.
Yeah, that's right. Right now it looks different. 2019 was a bit more open, in my opinion. Now it looks more difficult because, it feels like you have to beat, let's say, back-to-back these players. If one big win is not enough. That's why
you have to beat at least one of.
Madison Keys, why she won the Australian Open, because she managed to back up big wins and get multiple big wins. And, probably it's still too early for Mboko to do that. So,
yeah, I would agree, because those were the 3 players that she just didn't play in Canada, which she didn't come across. So, she beat Gauff. But, didn't beat Iga. So, we'll have to see what she's like. And I think the intensity that Swiatek and Sabalenka provide, it's going to be a learning experience for Mboko when she encounters that, I highly suspect. Okay, let's do a quick word on the tournaments that are coming up. We've got a 500 happening in Monterey, a 250 happening in Cleveland. I'm just going to do like one question per tournament. So, question about number one for Mario. Is it worth winning Monterey, given that it's literally a couple of days before the US Open and you've got to get from Mexico to New York pretty much overnight and time zones more or less?
For some players, for me, yes.
Which players?
You know, I'm thinking most of all, for example, Emma Navarro, you know, for how her season is going. For me, even though, of course, US Open, she defends a lot there. She was a semi-finalist last year. And she for sure would love to achieve a good result. I think she needs to be back, you know, in the winning circle, winning matches. And then there are all these players who, even though they're not, you know, maybe aiming very big at the US Open, meaning they're not title contenders, but even semi-final would be surprising for them. I still think, you know, if they entered Monterey, there must be a reason. And so, you know, I think, you know, it's worth for, you know, maybe ranking wise for some players, or just, you know, for the feeling of winning matches, winning a title. So yeah, my answer is yes. For me, it's always worth. We know what we saw, for example, last year from Noskova. So I get it's a tough turnaround, and maybe you may feel like it's, you know, it's tricky, and maybe it's not the best way possible to go into the US Open. At the same time, you know, I believe that if some players decided that they needed to play this tournament, they wanted to compete this week, you know, there is a reason for them to do it. And so, yeah, for me, it's worth it.
I would agree with that. I think we as tennis fans kind of think, well, what is it going to do to help you win the next Grand Slam? And tennis is about a longer game from that. And like building a ranking, as you're talking about, it might not help you win the next Grand Slam, but it might help you win the one after that, or one of the ones that are coming up in the next 12 months. Build your ranking, get yourself in a good position, get yourself strong. Like Noskova needs to defend as many points as she can, really, to hold up her ranking and come in as strongly as possible. So yeah, let's support players playing the long game here. Not just worrying about the US Open. Different question about Cleveland for me. Again, similar thing. This will probably be a boost to players who maybe want to come with a bit more match went under their belt. Similar thing for wanting to kind of build that long game and get themselves maybe a bit further up, kind of they're lower down the rankings. But for me, and you might be wondering why I'm going to go with this player. Why is Maya Joint? Would you say Maya Joint is the favorite to win Cleveland?
Why not? Probably yes. She's been, you know, making strides this year, and I really love her game. I really love how she you know, stays on court, how she approaches the game. So yeah, she really can be considered kind of the favorite. Maybe also Samsonova. You know, I would never count Samsonova out, because you never know when she's going to play the best week of her life. So yeah, probably these two players. But it's very
Mario, I need to cut you off because I've been an idiot. My Joint's already out.
What's
she lost to Eva Lees on Sunday, and I didn't know this.
Oh, okay. No, sorry, with Cincinnati, I wasn't in the mood yet. I was about to check. Okay, whatever. So, you know, what I've been saying, no. What I've been saying is, you know, still says, you know, because, you know, she's still, you know, very, very good player, which she's doing great this year. So who knows? Maybe this can help her having a good run at the US Open. We'll see.
Like, literally all this was purely based on Maya Joint won Rabat, which is the week before the French Open, and Eastbourne, which was the week before Wimbledon. So I thought she was just going to be the queen of the 250s before a Grand Slam, but Iga has already proved her wrong.
But it's an interesting tournament because there are many players who desperately need wins. For example, we've seen Bolter yesterday getting a win, and so I feel like both tournaments are really in some way important to players. I don't even consider them much differently in terms of how their value, considering the field. Also, Cleveland's got some very good players, but yeah, we'll see. At this point, the favorite is Samsonova for me.
Yeah, Samsonova with the logical favorite. I mean, I would have about to say maybe Iga, given she beat Joint, but she's currently 4-1 down in the first set to Polina Kudermetova. So maybe the other Kudermetova sister will do something big this week.
Yeah, probably.
Katie Bolter, this is the kind of tournament she does do well at. You're right. But yeah, Samsonova probably the favorite. And we'll see how Noskova and Navarro do in Monterrey. Not going to do much US Open chat this episode because draw's not out yet. The draw has not been revealed. Mario, what do you think? Do you think the draw has already been made and we're waiting to see what happens?
No, probably I don't know, because some player may still withdraw, and also they do it with some not machine but like algorithms. So it really doesn't take much to do it. So I really don't think they've already done it.
Okay, we shall put this conspiracy theories aside, but all will be revealed with the US Open draw on Thursday. We don't know 100% know when, because they never tell us when they're going to drop the draw. We are tentatively going with a midday Eastern time start for that 5 p.m. Be a sort of British time, which would be 6 p.m. CET, European time. So I think we're already getting a few good people for that. If it drops at the time that it's
reasonable time,
I'm not going to be able to join it, but we will see. But yeah, we're going to find out a lot of answers to our questions about the WTA field on Thursday. Mario, are you excited?
Yeah, sure. No, I'm really excited about the draw because we know that there's always plenty of popcorn matches, and yeah, we'll see. Maybe all our talk about favorites and everything will change slightly, at least, because big changes I don't think there will be, but maybe a slight change. Who knows? We'll see how the favorites path will look like.
Yeah, perfect. That's what the story is going to be, and we will bring you that story on Talking Tennis on Thursday. So please join our live stream for that. And then, we will then do full draw breakdowns on ATP and WTA Weekly. We will obviously let you know what's going to happen, but I will not be doing the WTA draw breakdown. But we will, as I'm not available, I am on vacation. So I will be not available to do that.
And you just enjoy it.
Thank you. So Saturday will be our WTA Weekly show and ATP Weekly to do a full draw breakdown of the path of the favourites. And I hope you tune in for those. Massively important, massively good for that. And thanks everyone for watching and supporting the show as always. If you like this video, please give us a like, subscribe if you're new, and join us for WTA Weekly next time. And in the meantime, take care and keep talking tennis.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.